Good morning. Today is May the 24th, 2026. The time is 8:29 a.m. The title of today's speech, or however I would like to describe it, is going to be What Happened? What happened? And I say that just because with the situations that this country has been put in by the so-called leadership, it makes you question what happened, right? And so the first thing I want to talk about is Venezuela. What happened with Venezuela? After this Maduro guy and his wife were quote unquote captured, we pretty much heard nothing else in reference to Venezuela. So what's happening to Venezuela? I heard that the lady who apparently had won the presidency down there, that she's now taking over the country and she's leading the country down there. But to what extent? How good of a job is she doing? How are the people in Venezuela faring, or are they better off? So, and I know it's only been a short period of time, and with most things it takes time, but are things seeming to be better? I hope so, but I would like to know so. I would like this information to be given to the American people so that we can know that these actions that this guy's taking aren't in vain. Because we also know that Cuba, if it already hasn't begun to happen, that Cuba is on the list. And so if it's not working in Venezuela, it's not going to work in Cuba, or vice versa. And we also know that he hadn't forgotten about Greenland and wanting to take over Greenland. Apparently, he has gone to the extent of posting images of Iran covered in an American flag, and it says the United States of Iran over in the Middle East. So to what extent is this going to go to? And what happened? What happened to all the drugs that were coming into the country? Has all of that ceased all of a sudden because this lady has gotten into power? And if it has ceased, what made it stop? Because even during the time that these quote unquote drug boats were being bombed, and you hear when I say boats meaning plural, so that means that one boat got blown up and so many days later they were back out on the water trying to bring more drugs in, so they weren't being completely deterred from trying to bring drugs into the United States, if that's the case. So why all of a sudden has that ended? Or is it now because of all of the other confusion and mess that this country has been thrown into? Is it they're still blowing up those boats out there, and they're blowing them up to a higher degree, but we're not being told about it? Or is it that the United States military is now in Venezuela, or the Navy is protecting, quote unquote, the Venezuelan waters to prevent drugs from coming into the United States? But regardless of whatever the situation is, it needs to be known so that we are aware of what's going on. Because everything that the government does can and could affect us, the citizens. I also would like to say what happened What happened to the Epstein files? What happened with Epstein? Is that all just been pushed under the rug now? What happened with Hillary and Bill Clinton? What happened, y'all? Has all of that just gone away? Just because we have the hantavirus and you have Ebola breaking out? And because this Iranian war was one of the biggest distractions that this country has probably ever seen in order to take our attention away from the Epstein files. But what happened, y'all? What happened to it? Nobody's, for the most part, even speaking about it online anymore. It's as if it's just completely gone away. But what we have to understand is that there has been hundreds, maybe even thousands of women, possibly even men, lives who have been affected by their decisions, but also by the decisions that was made for them by Epstein and the so-called elites of the world, not just of the United States, but of the entire world. All of the cover-ups, y'all. But what happened? And I just told you, that's why we no longer hear anything about Epstein. I even went into some details as far as concerning the so-called fallout that was between Trump and the Elon guy. And I knew from the jump that it was just something that they sat back and orchestrated, choreographed to fool many other people in this country. And just think about it. They have this public falling out. He goes and mentions Trump being in the Epstein files, to where Trump has denied adamantly about truly knowing this guy. But then, after more of the files were released, his name, Musk, was also mentioned in the files. So it's all psychology that these people are trying to use on you guys and on us. And many people are being fooled. And I knew then that they hadn't fallen out with one another. They just had to create this separatism between each other until everything kind of died down. And like I say, the Epstein issue has, for the most part, died down. And what did we just recently see? Donald Trump and Elon Musk over in China together. We have to stop being played like idiots, y'all, because I feel bad for people who are being fooled unknowingly by someone else. I hate to see that happen. And that's what's happening to majority of the people in this country. And I feel sorry for the ones that truly knew that this guy was not the guy to truly make this country a better country. I feel sorry for those people. But I don't feel sorry for the ones who sat there and voted for him. And sat there and badmouth Democrats and anybody who had something, quote unquote, negative to say about this guy. And now they want to cry, and now they want us to hand them a box of tissues to wipe their tears because of the ignorant decision that they decided to make. I don't feel sorry for them. You got this Candace lady, whoever she is, in which I have not, for the most part, ever listened to anything she had to say because I knew what type of person she was. And you got to understand, you have bandwagon people all over the place. And she just jumped on the bandwagon. And she jumped on the bandwagon with blindfolders on and with earmuffs and earplugs in her ears to where she refused to see the truth and refused to hear the truth. But now she wants to come out and talk so negatively about the same person that she appeared to be willing to give her life up for. Let's make sense of that. If you were willing to go that far with him, then you might as well stick it on out with him now. You might as well. You chose this person. But I don't feel sorry for them, because they were told time and time again, and they refused to listen. They were shown time and time again, and they refused to see. And why? Because they think and they see things the exact same way that this guy does. I mean, regardless, I get it. We all have had a past. We all have. But in my mind, it depends on what you did and how old you were at the time. And I say that because, yeah, we all mature at different rates. We all grow at different rates. But when you have someone that 40 years of age saying certain things that he said, grab him by the you know what. He wasn't a teenager when he said that. He wasn't in his 20s when he said that. He wasn't in his 30s when he said that. To grab a woman by her genital? Come on. And you telling me that that's not one reason to look at him a certain way and say, well, maybe he's not the right person to be leading an entire country and so-called be the leader of the entire free world, is what they describe the president of the United States as. Maybe he doesn't have the qualities for that. And then when he loses that election, he sat there time and time again hollering about how it was rigged. And anybody with any way of thinking knows that for the most part, that all presidents, I can't speak for governors or anything like that, but all presidents are already chosen for when they're going to be in power and all this stuff. So we can't say that it's rigged, because if it's rigged, it's been rigged since God knows how long. Since the Washington days, the election has been rigged, if you want to say that. It was rigged when Donald Trump won the election in 20, whatever it was. It was rigged then. You see what I'm saying? Really, the Hillary lady truly got more votes than Donald Trump did, meaning that she truly won the election. But because you have such a sore loser, you have an 80-year-old toddler in the White House. 80-year-old toddler in the White House. You had an 80-year-old teenager in the White House that sits there and says what he wants about who he wants when he wants to, which it makes no sense. But what happened? You know, and just, I mean, think about even though, yeah, we were a part of, but what happened to Israel and Hamas? We're not hearing much about that. We get little tidbits about what's going on, but what happened? And I'm going to tell you what happened in concern to the Ebola outbreak. And I've said it before. With certain people, things don't become a problem until it affects them. You hear me? Things are not a problem until it affects them. Meaning that most people know that Ebola and certain diseases in all places are an issue. But more so when we talk about Africa and the lack of certain resources that they may have, it's a big issue in Africa. And so when they went and cut all of this funding to Africa to save the United States money, in which the citizens of the United States haven't seen one red cent of those savings, and I'm going to say it again, regardless of the $500 check we got, because all that $500 did was go back into our gas tanks. We have not seen one red cent of any savings in this country. And now we see an outbreak of Ebola over in Africa, in which it happens from time to time. But the response at the last time it happened, compared to the response that they're going to get now and that they're getting, are different. And don't get me wrong, at the time to the last outbreak, you actually had people that was able to get into the United States, in which we haven't seen that yet. We pray that that doesn't happen. But things like this happen when funding, when we stop resources from going into certain areas. Because this possibly could have been caught a lot quicker. Because when you cut the funding, guess what else you cut? You cut off workers. You cut off what some people would call boots on the ground or troops on the ground to combat certain issues. But what happened to that money that Doge saved the federal government? You got some people who are, we have some people in this country that are so evil that they say, well, they save the money and all they're doing is using that money to fund the fight over in Iran, in which they more than likely are. But at the same time, if they save the government so much money, why on earth then are they going back and asking for more money to help fund this war? Meaning that if you're asking for more money to fund this war, the little money that you did save must have already been spent. And now you need more money printed in order to continue to fund this war. I swear, y'all, this everything that we're caught up in is just like a cloud of pure ignorance. And we shouldn't be surprised, because if you listen to the speech of the so-called leader of the free world, it's a bunch of ignorant garbage being spewed out of his mouth. And someone who can't speak with any level of intelligence, and not just because they're trying to impress someone, but because they truly mean what they're saying, you have to keep your eye, on your head on a swivel around them, so to speak. You have to keep a watch on those types of people, because they cannot be trusted. Too much sarcasm is not good. A person that is always sarcastic with you, you have to be on alert with that person, because you don't know when they're telling you the truth or when they mean what they say and when they don't mean what they say. And that's what has developed in the White House. A person that you don't know when he says something, whether or not he means it, whether or not it's a joke, you just don't know. And because this, and many people are caught up on entertainment, y'all got lost in the voting. And you can sit there and I'm gonna keep faith. And you can stick by his side because you decide to vote him in there anyway. So I don't knock you for some people for being ride or die to the end with him, because they chose him. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to ride it till the wheels fall off, and that's just what's going to happen. They're going to fall off, and it's not going to be repairable. It's going to be unrepairable. But, like I said, that's what we wanted. And I don't know what type of savior or what type of man of God these people think that guy is. Because, yeah, he could have been sent from God. He could have been chosen from God. Just like Satan, the beast, the false prophet. Yeah, all of them were chosen by God to be who they are. And that's not good for the people in the long run. Yeah, the ones that choose to bow down and kiss their butts and all this other stuff. Yeah, you may enjoy the so-called fruits of labor on this earth, but when it's all said and done, you got a person that said he don't think he's gonna get into heaven, but yet they look at him as if they're his God. I mean, he's their God. So, but yeah, I just had to come on here and ask that question though. What happened? What happened? Because it's just so many distractions after distraction that they continuously use in order to keep our attention jumping from place to place to where we can't even focus. And that's what they want, because you have to look at it. The devil is nothing but confusion. So anybody around him, associated with him, is going to use confusion in order to stay on top. If you listen to that Elon guy ever talk, and it's a lot of them that are like that, but if you ever sit down and listen to their interviews and hear them speak, they use a bunch of speech to confuse you. And in between all of that confusion, they may say something that in your mind makes sense. And because that was the only thing you were able to gather out of everything that they were saying, you stick to that and you run with it. But you didn't listen to anything else that this person was saying, as far as sometimes we have to read between the lines, especially when it comes to confusion. You have to take confusion and try and make some order out of it, because when people are speaking, even through confusion, they're making a point. And in most cases, that point is not a good one. But y'all, I just had to come on here and speak to you. I hadn't posted anything in a while or what have you, so I just really wanted to come on here and talk to y'all. There's probably other things I wanted to say, because I don't script out anything that I get on here and say, and which some people may say it's obvious. I get on here and I speak my mind. I don't write it down, any of that. So I just say all that because there's so much that could be explained in between the lines of what I'm saying. There's so much that I sometimes forget to say because of that reason, but like I said, y'all take it easy out there. I hope y'all have a great Sunday. I hope your your week goes well, your holiday goes well. If you celebrate holidays, if you don't, I just hope you have a great day. But yeah, y'all take it easy out there, and I'll talk to you soon.